Hey there, folks. How you all doing? It's Jeff C. here, coming with the latest breaking news of the night. Well, it seemed to be conveniently ready just prior to Obama giving his State of the Union speech that Christopher Dorner has been killed. He has died in a, well, it was an extended firefight according to the police, CIA, FBI, whoever is feeding the mainstream media, who are, as we know by now, all part of the game. I actually was speaking with Greg earlier this afternoon on the telephone, and I said to him, I guarantee you he will be dead before the president gets up. Sure enough, I was right, you know. Now, of course, what are we going to know is what the mainstream is going to tell us, and and we're going to have to make a whole lot of guesses apart from that. But I said before in a few videos that I did on this that there's no way this guy is going to come in alive. It's not going to happen. You got to be drinking the White House Kool-Aid and the Anderson Cooper Kool-Aid to think that that there was any chance that this guy would actually be captured and brought to justice, have his day in court. Did he really shoot anybody? Was he the one that did it? I mean, we're supposed to believe these jokers. We're supposed to believe, these people here who lie to us all the time. And we're supposed to believe them. We're supposed to take what they say as fact. And we've seen some pretty disturbing things tonight. I'm going to start off here with the breaking news because probably people want to hear what these jokers are going to say.
We're going to go right now to John Yang, who's our NBC correspondent at the Bureau in Los Angeles. John, we're going to wrap up our coverage of this and go to the State of the Union coverage at 9 o'clock Eastern, of course, which is still the big national story tonight. But this one certainly challenged it.
Yeah. So it's incredible how well it fits in. It really was incredible because I'm here watching this on CNN. And just as they're getting ready to get to the State of the Union, it seemed like it was made for TV. The lead-in, the appetizer was the enraged cop, armed to the teeth, 30 rifles, big bear man. He's killing cops left, right, and center. He's dangerous. He's got lots of weapons. That was the whole lead off, and then of course it went into the presidential State of the Union address. So this is how they work things. They have their boardroom meetings and they schedule things, and well, let's let them go on.
This is a saga which you've been covering for all these days.
It is. It's been going on really for more than a week, but the public manhunt has been going on since last Thursday. We're now looking at the pictures earlier of the cabin where we believe Christopher Dorner was holed up burning. It is now essentially burned to the ground, and we can now see in rather dark pictures, we can see that some fire truck, at least one fire truck, is now moved in, and the smoke has turned white, suggesting that water is now being poured onto that fire. Today, one more sheriff's deputy died, one more law enforcement officer died in this pursuit of Christopher Dorner. Another one was shot several times, but we're being told by the law enforcement sources in San Bernardino County that he was not, none of the wounds were to vital areas. He is expected to survive. That same source is also telling NBC producers on the scene that there were two hostages held over the weekend in that first cabin where Dorner was holed up. That he did have them over the weekend. He was hiding in that cabin, remarkably enough, virtually directly across the street from the command post. and was in there over the weekend with these two hostages. Today, left
Yeah,
somehow.
that is amazing. That is amazing. Right across the street from the command post. You gotta be shitting me. You gotta be. I haven't seen this before, but my God. Don't forget, it was right next to Sandy Hook, Newton, where they were doing a drill, and they had the school shooting drill, just like in 9/11, where FEMA just happened to be there the day before, and just like on 7/7, where they just happened to be doing a bombing exercise in London, right when somebody planted a bomb. You know, if you still believe these things are coincidences, you're just fucking stupid. You know, I'm sorry. Break it to you. I mean, it's not too late for you. You can wake up now, but you know, you're just thick. You know, you're not paying attention. You're drinking the mainstream Kool-Aid. You are not getting your news from reliable sources, and you're not questioning things. We need to question all these things. This is just silly. I mean, he was right across the street. It sounds pretty convenient, doesn't it? Sounds like you know, you got here's the command post, and well, why put it halfway across the town? Let's put it right across the street. That way we can really keep an eye on it and set it up nicely, and you know, put some gasoline in there, maybe a couple explosions, some lighter fluid. I don't know. You know, make it look kosher. You know, they're gonna tell us that this guy was in there. They're gonna tell us, and they're gonna have these witnesses that are gonna come forth, hopefully, and we're gonna see what they have to say. And then every single person who worked really hard to expose the Sandy Hook, if they're not absolutely exhausted with all the work, myself being one of the people that really dug into that Sandy Hook thing to try to expose it, to try to alert Americans about what's going on, about how they are coming for your guns, and they are not going to take no for an answer. And I think by the end of this video, you'll get an even much stronger idea of how serious they are coming for your guns. This is just perfect. It's a perfect lead up. It's a perfect. Another cop is dead. 2 people were held hostage. You know, it's just, and it's all wrapped up just before the president steps up to give his nice little speech, right? This is how they do things. Just look at how they do things. As I said, look at Sandy Hook, look at 9/11, look at 7/7, look at how they do these things, look at how they carry them out. It's always, it's almost also transparent. But that's only if you actually step outside the, you know, control that they have you in. That means that you actually don't buy the mainstream media. Well, let's listen to these jokers go on and tell their little tale.
And then we're now being told that emerged from the woods, from the forest, and hijacked another car. And then that car was spotted by police. He emerged, traded gunshots with officers, wardens from the California Fish and Wildlife Division, and then ran to this cabin where he was holed up, exchanged more gunfire with law enforcement. Somehow a fire began, and now that cabin has burned to the ground, and they have now moved in. They said they would not move in until it was safe, but now apparently they have moved in to start to put that fire out.
Yeah, so they're not going to move in until the whole thing's burned to the fucking ground, until the corpse is just a pile of bones or whatever, right? I mean, it's all too convenient, isn't it, folks? I mean, I'm sure you're getting the idea now that they don't really give a fuck how transparent it is, because the 80 or 85% of people who are incapable of critical thought cannot stand there, look at the news, or sit there while they're drinking their beverage, which is messing up their brain patterns, and be able to diagnose what is really going on. They can't critically look at these things. They just, feed me more, more, give me more, drink the Kool-Aid.
A lot of things, details we don't know, but that's where we stand right now, Chris.
How much of the story involving perhaps the purchase of scuba equipment and perhaps a plan to escape south of the border has been verified? John.
Well, we do know there was an affidavit filed by U.S. Marshal Service in support of the charges yesterday, and it did say that some of his belongings, including an ID, were found near the San Isidro border crossing south of San Diego. And there's also been a report that on, I believe it was Thursday, or at some point last week, that a man who fit Dorner's description tried to steal a boat and told the captain of the boat, you can get it back in Mexico because that's where I'm headed. But then the bow line of that boat became wrapped up in the propeller and disabled the boat. So it does look like that perhaps he did try to make it south before heading to Big Bear Lake.
That's right. So he was what? He was purchasing scuba gear? I mean, how stupid does this get? You know? They found his ID and some of his belongings right on a border town? So how did they get there? He mailed them there? The stork brought them? I mean, what the fuck? Right? Oh, Corey, well, it's the same people that brought you the news of finding one of the alleged box cutter terrorists who created the greatest attack in American soil in the history of America, right? That they found his passport. Yeah, it was perfect. I mean, he only blew up in a plane, but his passport was perfect. It was 4 blocks away from the World Trade Center. It was just there. It looked great. I mean, he probably could have used it again if he had not been vaporized, right? But this is how they do it. And then they say, see what he was doing? He was trying to do this, and then he's trying to take a boat, but he doesn't know how to use a boat, right? So he got the bow line all tied up in it. I mean, it's utterly absurd. It's so stupid. So what? He didn't try to steal another boat? He just fucking fled up into Big Bear? Yeah, whatever. As I said, I believe this guy was on ice from day one. You can go back and see my first podcast on this. I predicted a lot of this stuff. I didn't predict that he would be killed today, but I predicted today, earlier, that he would be killed before the president got up to speak. Or so they would say, right? It's all too predictable now. I'm sure there's I'm sure most of you probably listening are like, yeah, we saw it too, you know? Absolutely. I mean, if you've just got a little bit of understanding of how the media is playing people, how the media is in cahoots completely with this shadow government to completely destroy all our rights and freedoms, then you know that it's all predictable. These things happen. There was no way that Christopher, and I almost said a droner. You know, a lot of people have pointed that out too, of course, that Dorner, drone, you know, this is how they do things. Big Bear, Big Black Man. You know, we talked about monarch programming before. These are the catchwords that jump into people's minds. You know, that, and that's stuff that they've studied. You know, stuff that the Nazis learned and passed on to the Americans. Of course, they were hired and brought over after the war and used by the CIA to develop all this mind control and understand. I mean, the greatest form of mind control in the history of the world is television. If you haven't figured that out yet, then there's no hope for you. Right, so let's go on with this stupidness.
It's so interesting covering that part of the country as you do, John, and the way that people's instincts are trained perhaps by seeing films. And you think about O.J. and when they found him, when he was after the Bronco chase, they found him in the possession of disguised material and a passport and evidence, at least, circumstantial, that he may have been headed for the border. It's so much a part of that story of Southern California, the border being there as a place of refuge. It didn't work for this fellow, apparently. And again, I go back to this, the land of dreams, Los Angeles, where all the movies are made. We grew up with, and And the strange way in which life imitates art. I talked of High Sierra, where Bogart hid in the hills and was killed, and with Ida Lupino, I think of White Heat, as I mentioned, James Cagney going up in flames at the end, yelling, "Top of the world, Ma." This strange connection between the mind that becomes criminal and the love of media attention. And the way that this person, apparently, was seeking out media attention.
Yeah. You know, is there any bigger hypocrite than this piece of shit that's telling you that? You know, oh, it's so sick the way they want a media attention. Here's a media whore, a prostitute. I mean, there's no bigger whores than these people, right? And it's all like a Hollywood movie. Well, isn't it? Isn't it? Really? Really? Brought to you by MSNBC, brought to you by CNN, brought to you by ABC, CBS, you know, you name it. It is a Hollywood movie. That's the whole thing. It is a Hollywood movie, and I guarantee you they'll make a movie about this if we're still around and there's still movie theaters, right? This is how they do things. This is how they convince you of the boogeyman. And the boogeyman here is the same boogeyman that Adam Lanza was. It's the same boogeyman that you've seen in Aurora and all these other shootings. Each one of them, which is at the very least highly suspicious to completely unbelievable. You know, when we're talking Sandy Hook and Aurora, right? And this one, I mean, this is how they do it. It is like a movie. They want you to tune in. They want you every single fucking day to be watching the news, to be drinking the Wolf Blitzer Kool-Aid or the Anderson Cooper, Katie Couric, or whoever the fucking prostitute of the hour is, right? They want you. It's a movie. That's what they're competing with. They want to take you away from the garbage that is on the other mainstream channels and onto their garbage, which is the 24-hour-a-day bullshit news channels, right? They want you to watch this stuff, so they have to make it like a movie. So this whole thing is perfect for them. I mean, they love this. I mean, remember when we did a podcast, I think it was Greg and I did a podcast on Sandy Hook, and the bald dude, I don't know who this guy is. He's got glasses, and he, you know, they send him out there, and what is he doing? He's in the storm as the storm is coming in, and the water's rising, and there's a wicked current. He's out, you know, he's in Atlantic City or something, and there's 4 feet of water on the streets. And he's actually backing up right the whole time that he's talking to try to get to the part of the current that's the strongest, right? Just so he can have his fame. This is how they deliver the news. This is how they do it, you know? This is the whole thing. We can't even get to the point now where we can blur, you know? It's how do we find out what the reality is when these jokers manipulate it, when they create it? When everything they're doing is trying to ape it, trying to you know, dig it for all it's worth, you know, and listen to this jerk off.
Trying to connect in strange ways, perhaps with Charlie Sheen, who's had a troubled past himself, and mentioning names of the media people, like myself even. This strange
you can't even go without mentioning himself, right? Charlie Sheen, whack jobs, nutbags, they're crazy. All part of the language.
Connection between refuge, seeking refuge, desperation, and still wanting attention.
And this is a guy, I think, as Clint Van Zandt said, who was angry and had sort of collected all these grievances over the years. He, in his manifesto, talks about an incident in high school and even cites the name of the assistant principal who he clashed with, cites the name of another student who he clashed with, and clearly had been carrying that with him all that time, and sort of just built up all these other slights that he felt, that he had been railroaded by the LAPD because of his race, colleagues on the LAPD who had used racial epithets against him, all built up now to this moment.
And all this stuff they're telling us, this is what they want you to believe. We don't have Dorner here to tell us his version of the story. There's no chance. He's dead. As I said, he's on ice. Or as if they say he is, he's a burnt, you know, he's burnt to a crisp, right? Um, you know, this is what he was. He was unhinged. He was crazy. He hated people from high school. He couldn't let it go. You know, why? Because some crazy manifesto that looked like it was written by 3 different people? Yeah, we're gonna believe that? You know? Whatever.
This conflagration in this cabin in the mountains outside Los Angeles.
Well, see, we hear here a Los Angeles manhunt. We've been used to them over the years, and here's one that ended in the mountains here in San Bernardino. We lost a life tonight of a police officer doing his job in action, killed in action, if you will. A member of the Deputy's Department of the Sheriff's Department of San Bernardino County. He's died in a hospital tonight of wounds. Another deputy has survived, who's apparently going to make it, which is great news. At least there's some good news tonight. And, of course, we're watching here perhaps in that shack out there, that house over there in the hills, the end of the life of the troubled man, Christopher Dorner, who apparently led a spree of killings in the last week, killing 2 police officers, 4 people altogether, including some clearly innocent people. In fact, all 4 of them were innocent. In fact, and here we go to the end of another saga in a violent country, I must say. But fortunately, as I said before, most of us aren't. Anyway, we're going to...
Yeah, so, like, alleged, right? This is... we don't know if he killed a damn soul. We have no proof. Why? Because they say so? Right? We already seen how every single big black man that even remotely looks like Mr. Dorner has been interrogated, has been confused by witnesses, has been, you know, ran after by police. Heck, if you even drive a freaking car or a truck that looks anything like, I mean, one guy got shot up, he didn't have the same color. The car was a completely different color. There's an old lady delivering a newspaper with her daughter, and they get shot up. I mean, how stupid can it get? It gets as stupid as they want it to get, right? This is how they package the news. They wrap it up. Now, one of the things that I gotta mention here is how every week there's a story. And if you don't notice this by now, then you don't understand the game that they're playing. Every week there's a new story. That's why when we had Sandy Hook, we had it for a week, and then all of a sudden they released all this crap on the Steubenville rape, and that took everybody's mind off Sandy Hook, right? And then there's something else, and then there's something else, and then Chris Dorner comes around, right? And it's a week. It's a perfect thing for cable news, because they know they can't keep people's attention forever, because most people have the attention span, you know, of you know, a rabbit or something, right? But they'll get them tuning back in while the story is hot, you know, and this is what they do. They milk it for all it's worth. They just milk it, milk it, milk it. You know, it's awful to see this stuff. It really is. You know, I really think right now we're at the point where there's no way we can ever trust these people. I'm trying to make this point, right? I'm trying to make this point and, you know, make it clear to everybody that we need to expose the corporate media. It has to be exposed. If you expose the corporate media, you can destroy the corporate media, right? A lot of people did good work with Anderson Cooper. I mean, whoever was the first to get the nose thing, that's excellent. There's been so many more that have come forth. Everybody else jumps on it. I jumped on it, you know, put my little part into it, try to push it around. This is what we need to do. I mean, it's clear. It's the only way we can break their control, because if we can fully discredit the media, which, you know, the famous quote there from a CIA director, I can't remember his name, but I think it was back in 1971, it was during Nixon, and he said back then, CIA long ago infiltrated all major positions in media, meaning all the major broadcasters, the anchors, you know, they're under the thumb, right? They're part of this whole way of conditioning people. And you just have to look back to see the Kennedy assassination or see 9/11 to see how much under the control they don't. I mean, they don't do anything remotely close to journalism. Journalism now, I mean, there's journalism when it comes to people out there on their tush going out there, going out on their own 2 feet, walking around, asking questions, forcing people to answer questions, digging into things. That's journalism. But what these people do, what these cretins, what these creatures do, that's not news, right? It's media porn, and it's also, you know, government controlled. And I say shadow government controlled. I have to be clear about that because there's so many goof-offs in the government that have no idea how they're being played. Speak of the devil, and he shall arrive. So I'm going to get the part of the President's State of the Union speech here, which I feel is, well, it was right at the end of the speech. I watched the whole thing. There was a hockey game on, and I couldn't even be bothered to watch the hockey because I was so interested in seeing what he was going to say. And he didn't disappoint, especially when it comes to using and milking Sandy Hook and all the shootings for all it's worth. Now, hopefully this video will cover all that. Let's see.
Presents not just dangers, not just threats, it presents opportunities to boost American exports, support American jobs, and level the playing field in the growing markets of Asia. We intend to complete negotiations on a Trans-Pacific Partnership. And tonight I'm announcing that we will launch talks on a comprehensive transatlantic trade and investment partnership with the European Union, because trade that is fair and free across the Atlantic supports millions of good-paying American jobs.
Oh, I'll tell you what it does support. It supports those huge CEOs that are making gazillions of dollars on the backs of everyone else. It supports those corporations that export all their labor and manufacturing to third world countries, you know, where people in China are committing suicide. They had to put up a net outside the building where they make iPads because so many people were jumping from it. You know, drink the Kool-Aid more.
We also know that progress in the most impoverished parts of our world enriches us all. Not only because it creates new markets, more stable order in certain regions of the world, but also because it's the right thing to do. You know, in many places, people live on little more than $1 a day. So the United States will join with our allies to eradicate such extreme poverty in the next 2 decades by connecting more people to the global economy.
Or by just wiping those people out, preventing them from having children, inoculating them with all kinds of crazy things, you know. There's a plan, there's no doubt. We're gonna bring down the world population one way or another, by hook or by crook, right? I wanted to get to the gun part, so I haven't looked at this video. I wanted to...
When Aung San Suu Kyi welcomed an American president into the home where she had been in prison for years.
I'm trying to move ahead here.
Stable transitions to democracy.
Another jerk-off fest where all the Democrats stand like trained puppets.
These are the messages I'll deliver when I travel to the Middle East next month. And all this work depends on the courage and sacrifice of those who will invest in new capabilities, even as we reduce waste and wartime spending, for their continued dedication to serving our military families as well as they have served us. Thank you, honey. Most fundamental rights of a democracy, the right to vote. A nonpartisan commission to improve the voting experience in America.
Dianne Feinstein. Must be getting close.
What I've said tonight matters little if we don't come together to protect our most precious resource.
There we go.
Our children.
There we go.
It has been 2 months since Newtown. I know this is not the first time this country has debated how to reduce gun violence. But this time is different. Overwhelming majorities of Americans who believe in the Second Amendment, have come together around common sense reform, like background checks that will make it harder for criminals to get their hands on a gun. Senators.
There she is.
Senators of both parties are working together on tough new laws to prevent anyone from buying guns for resale to criminals. Police chiefs are asking our help to get weapons of war and massive ammunition magazines off our streets because these police chiefs, they're tired of seeing their guys and gals being outgunned. Each of these proposals deserves a vote in Congress.
I'm sure you noticed by now the green ribbon, which I did a thing on, the whole monarch programming. Oddly enough, the president's not wearing one, right? You see a lot of Republicans aren't, because they know what it symbolizes. They're going to milk this hoax for all it's worth. They're going to milk Dorner for all it's worth. They're going to milk Aurora for all it's worth. They're going to use these things because it's the most classic neocon strategy ever. When you want to achieve something, create the problem and offer the solution. You know, create the killings or create the mock killings to convince the people that they're in danger. Create the enemy, Al-Qaeda, so that you can convince the people that they need protection and that they need to give up their freedoms. It is the most disgusting way of achieving things, but this guy here, there's nothing I wouldn't put past him. There's nothing that this man won't do. The way that he speaks, now he's an excellent speaker, you know, I'll give him that. But that's what makes him so dangerous. Because he honeycoats his words so carefully. Of course, his speeches are co-written or written by others. But he's a master orator, and like Clinton, his words are sweet and dripped in honey, and they make you feel safe, so that the sheeple at home feel like their president actually cares about them. He actually is doing things to try to protect them. When the thing that they need protection from the most, from these jokers, they're the most dangerous people to the American people. As often is the case. I mean, go back in history. It's always the governments that are they're the most dangerous force against their own people. But let's listen to more of this fucking bullshit.
If you want to vote no, that's your choice. But these proposals deserve a vote. Because in the 2 months since Newtown, more than 1,000 birthdays, graduations, anniversaries have been stolen from our lives by a bullet from a gun.
Mm-hmm. And that's how they do it, right? 1,000, so 1,000 people have died, as they say, or whatever. And they use the image of graduations and weddings and birthdays and stuff like that, so that the average person feels affected by these 1,000 people who have died. When you think about it, in reality, a country of 330 plus million people, the stats have shown that gun-related deaths are not on the rise; they're actually on the decline. So, you know, I can recall times like way back when that, you know, things were quite violent in the United States, and gun violence, cities like New York were often, you know, associated with being highly, you know, dangerous. I think, you know, you think back to the 70s and the movies like, of course I was just a baby, but the movies like Death Wish, You know, these movies that showed the American culture, which we've seen, you know, growing up, how much violence there was. And really, the trend has actually changed in many ways. So he doesn't really have much to stand on here when it comes to innocent people being killed. There's always innocent people being killed. There's always way more innocent people being killed by the actions of their own government. When we talk about soldiers, people like Pat Tillman, right, that serve their country and are murdered, you know. People that die suspiciously, the people of Sandy Hook, whoever died, some people had to die, right, to fulfill that crazy lunatic idea. But this is what they do. They try to convince you that there's such a horrible, horrible problem out there. And he's going to show you a bunch of people here to prove it.
More than 1,000. One of those we lost was a young girl named Nydia Pendleton. She was 15 years old. She loved fig Newtons and lip gloss. She was a majorette. She was so good to her friends, they all thought they were her best friend. Just 3 weeks ago, she was here in Washington with her classmates, performing for her country at my inauguration. And a week later, she was shot and killed in a Chicago park after school.
Poor girl should never have performed at that inauguration. Somebody had to be the example, right? It's a perfect ploy. Now, I'm saying I don't know anything about this girl. She might have died just because of some horrible crime, but really the horrible crime that exists within the United States, most of it is due to poverty, right? Most of it's due to these motherfuckers in these suits who sit up here and make millions, and you know, the lobbyists, the corporations, the 0.01%, right? That all the money goes to them. They control these people. They put them in office. They tell them what to do. If you're ever confused about who controls the president, just watch Reagan's inauguration speech when the CEO of Merrill Lynch, Donald Reagan, R-E-E-G-A-N, I believe, not Reagan, but Donald Reagan leaned over and told President Reagan to speed it up because he was taking too long. He was getting all long-winded and reminiscing about Hollywood, perhaps, right? And I gotta speed it up, is what the president said. Nobody tells the president to speed it up if the president was really in charge. The president is a puppet, right? And he serves the banks. He serves the Federal Reserve.
Just a mile away from my house.
Wait, mile away from his house. He lives in Washington. He's talking about Chicago, anyways. It's dumb.
Nate and Cleo are in this chamber tonight, along with more than 24 Americans whose lives have been torn apart by gun violence.
Right, and they're right next to the First Lady. And guess who's on the other side? They got the First Lady, they got another victim here, then they got Jill Biden, and then they have that blonde chick from, remember? The girl from, I can't remember her name, Caitlin something, who was the teacher, you know, who did a lot of snorting but not a lot of tearing when she did her little acting job on Sandy Hook.
They deserve a vote.
You gonna make those fat people stand? That's cruel.
They deserve a vote.
That's how they do it.
Gabby Giffords deserves a vote.
Well, they got Gabby there.
The families of Newtown deserve a vote. The families of Aurora
There she is. Remember?
The families of Oak Creek and Tucson and Blacksburg and the countless other communities ripped open by gun violence, they deserve a simple vote.
Yep, they're all there. They've got them sitting next to the first lady, the second lady. I don't know what you call Joe Biden's wife there, but the VP's wife. And this is how they do it. This is how they control public opinion. This is how they're trying to sway Congress, but they're not going to give Congress the real vote on it anyways. They're just going to go in and fucking take the weapons. We already seen that. That's what we're seeing with Dorner. Right? The drones are up. Let's let this vomit fest play on.
They deserve a simple vote. Our actions will not prevent every senseless act of violence in this country. In fact, no laws, no initiatives, no administrative acts will perfectly solve all the challenges I've outlined tonight. But we were never sent here to be perfect. We were sent here to make what difference we can, to secure this nation, expand opportunity, uphold our ideals through the hard, often frustrating, but absolutely necessary work of self-government. We were sent here to look out for our fellow Americans, the same way they look out for one another, every single day, usually without fanfare, all across this country. We should follow their example. We should follow the example of a New York City nurse named Menchu Sanchez.
There she is.
When Hurricane Sandy plunged her hospital into darkness, she wasn't thinking about how her own home was faring. Her mind was on the 20 precious newborns in her care and the rescue plan she devised that kept them all safe. We should follow the example of a North Miami woman named Desaline Victor. When Desaline arrived at her polling place, she was told the wait to vote might be 6 hours. As time ticked by, her concern was not with her tired body or aching feet, but whether folks like her would get to have their say. And hour after hour, a throng of people stayed in line to support her. Because Desaline is 102 years old. And they erupted in cheers when she finally put on a sticker that read, "I voted."
Yeah. And everyone's got to cheer for the old black lady. I mean, God bless her. She is a great example, right? And that's how they do it. I mean, they're going to use real people. You know, real people who have suffered or have done heroic things. You know, there's a ton of great Americans out there. Probably more great Americans out there than there are really bad ones, you know. Although it just seems like the really bad ones seem to get elected, right? Maybe it's their psychopathic nature that allows them to rise to the top because they're willing to step on anybody, do anything that their masters in the Federal Reserve and in the banking cartel of the world bid them. You know, the president is, you know, it's listening to him, it's almost like Bill Clinton. Again, you know, honey-coated words to take away the rights of Americans. I mean, Americans right now don't live in a free country, you know. The free country ended when 9/11 happened, and the Patriot Act was brought in. All these departments of security, Homeland Security, all these TSA, horrible abominations like the National Defense Authorization Act. I mean, none of these things are by accident. I mean, people, you know, you got to remember that Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act in on New Year's Eve. I think it was around 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the evening, when everybody was out having a good time. He slipped it in. It tells you how evil the president is. The fact that he would do something like that, right? They use people. They use them as pawns, as puppets, you know. This is how they do it. We've seen it. This Dorner thing, it's all too perfect. It's all too convenient. It's all part of the plan. The plan that saw Mr. Obama, the moment that he knew he was reelected, the first thing that was on his mind was the United Nations gun grab, to push that through. So many shootings that have happened since then that have been just plastered and pasted in front of your face by the corporate media that works for the same engine that controls the presidency. That's how they do it. It's all part of the plan. You've got to disarm the people if you want to control them. If you want to have a dictatorship, if you want to have a totalitarian state, you cannot have an armed population. You can't have it. And that is why they are doing everything they can to convince you that you'll be safer when people can't have any more than 10 rounds and pop guns, have a little rifle here and there. They're convincing, or they're trying to convince the Americans that they need to fear their own neighbors. They need to fear their cities. They need to fear their police. Right? Dorner? Don't think that's by accident. There's a way to paint people if you view them as a target. This whole Sandy Hook thing brought out a bit of a debate whether or not it was not just a whole CIA psyop, which I said when I responded to the Truther Girl there, that and Max Egan, that's a possibility, right? That is certainly a possibility, but that's a huge sort of thing to pull off. I still tend to believe that this is all part of the gun grab, and how the gun grab is absolutely essential to having that dictatorship, to have complete control over the people. Now, of course, they're going after truthers. They use the corporate media to, really make truthers look like lunatics, right? As they did with Anderson Cooper and that guy Cenk from the Young Turds. And probably many others. I just don't watch a lot of corporate media because, it makes my stomach upset. But that's the plan, and the plan is to use, as Rahm Emanuel says, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? You have to really watch the language of these people, watch the language of the corporate media, and it gives you a clue of what they're up to and where they're going to go to next. But we're in dark days here where drones have been officially initiated, right? I think a lot of people knew that drones were being used in the skies. Maybe they're hard to see, but there's thousands of police officers, probably tens of thousands of police officers are being trained on how to use drones. The LA mayor, I can't remember his name, but he came out and said that, I believe it was the mayor, or it was the chief of police of the LAPD, that their police force has been at the forefront of drones and drone training. So that's the reality, folks. United States, you're living in a country where you're a few steps away from, being North Korea, essentially. What's the difference? right? What's the difference? Because pretty soon, if you start saying things against the government, they're going to find a way to lock you up. And they're going to terrorize people and make people very, very afraid to stand up and say anything. They already have. I mean, you don't hear any politicians coming out and calling Sandy Hook bullshit. You hear one politician come out that? Because they know it's suicide, right? But most of them don't even bother to look at that crap. They can't be bothered. They buy it like us. I mean, a lot of them, as I said, a lot of these people here, they think that they're, they're doing their job. They think that they live in a democracy or a republic, and that, they're doing good things for the people. They just don't understand who really runs the show. They don't really understand that they're all kind of there for the banksters. And the banksters have big plans for our world. And if you're confused about them, just go see the Georgia Guidestones, where it calls for 500 million people. You can call it conspiracy theory, wacko stuff, but there's so much evidence to suggest that the banksters' ultimate goal is to depopulate the population and return it to nature. You just need to look up Agenda 21 to verify that, and you'll see it all. It's all there. It's all laid out. They don't hide this shit because they figure most people are too stupid. And then the other people that do dig into it, well, we'll just use our wing, which is the corporate media. The Nazis were masters at propaganda. Goebbels, right? Goebbels mastered propaganda. Whether it was, using it to, target the Jews, the pogroms, things like that they did during the 30s, the Night of the Long Knives. They knew propaganda as good as anyone, and I tell you, it's the same thing. This CNN, MSNBC, all these corporate media, it's the same thing. It's propaganda. That's what it is. And until enough people wake up and realize that it's propaganda, there isn't going to be the awakening that needs to happen. I really believe that the first thing that needs to fall for America to recover is the corporate media, because the media is the message. And if most people, as we said, most people, 85% out there that are the sheeple that we all refer to, right? And you see people waking up every day. Every day I get messages, I was asleep. God bless you for waking up. Let's wake up others. We don't have to shovel, mountainfuls onto their plate so that they just want to throw up. We can give them spoonfuls. A little spoonful here, a little spoonful there to create the doubt. Seed the doubt. If you can seed the doubt, then you have a chance at recovering. You have a chance at stopping these people from carrying out their plan, right? Take away your guns. Once your guns are gone, you can no longer put up a resistance. And that means you will be subject to whatever tyranny they have in mind. There will be no second chances. The real battle is here now, right? If this falls into a civil war, which I unfortunately don't really see it going much other way, I mean, if Mr. Obama here is intent to do the bidding of his bankster masters and declaw the population of the United States, go after the gun owners, there will be civil war. I'm pretty sure of that. I think Alex Jones was right on that. And that's a really horrible, horrible, sad thing. All these extra background checks and all that too, it's not really. I mean, come on, right? What kind of guy that wants to go out and kill people actually goes and buys a gun from a gun dealership and fills out all these forms? There's a million ways to purchase weapons in the United States. You can get it from criminal organizations. There's so many of them. It's the #1 thing that's traded in the world. You know, if you don't want to buy it from other Americans, you can buy it from the IRA, you can buy it from other groups that are out there, Mexican drug lords. There's an unlimited amount of weapons out there that people can get their hands on. If somebody wants to go out and kill people, all they got to do is get in a truck and drive down a sidewalk or something. They'll kill way more people than they can with a gun. You know, even with a really good knife or sword, you could kill a lot of people, right? There's a million ways to kill people, and that's not going to stop. I mean, people, unfortunately, are going to die. To me, the way to cut down violence in the United States is to cut down poverty. It really is. I mean, the way that the blacks and the Latinos are ghettoized, it's sickening, right? It's sickening. And that's the cycle. It's the perpetual cycle. I mean, when a kid grows up without a father and he's in a project, and, you know, I mean, anybody's seen The Wire? Wire's probably the most brilliant piece of television I've ever seen in my life. And it really lifts the veneer off the United States to show that, you know, it's not a matter of how hard you try. It's a matter of circumstance. It's a matter of where and when you come up. Your circumstances. You could be the best person in the world and you can get broken down by the crime and the poverty and the drugs and everything that's around. I mean, we've talked about how the CIA was largely responsible, especially during the Reagan and subsequent Bush era, for bringing in a lot of the drugs that were coming into the United States. That's a fact. That's a fact, right? There's a reason why they want people on drugs. There's just like the same reason they want people drinking Coca-Cola and Pepsi and eating McDonald's and eating all the things. I mean, we have done so much work on this with our podcast, breaking it down, how all these foods that most people ingest every day are destroying their thinking patterns. I mean, it's purposeful. They don't want you to think. That's why they get these magicians up here. These puppets that you know, are perfectly designed in order to put your mind at ease, in order to convince you that you need to be cared for. The state will help you out. We'll help you out. We'll do what's necessary, you know. Meanwhile, the state is creating the problems and bringing in the solutions in order to bring in their police state. And I think that's what United States is now. It's a police state now. It is officially a police state. You know, you got TSA, you got women getting their vaginas penetrated on TSA road checks. You know, I mean, how much worse can it get? I just don't know. You know, there's so many good places in the United States. There's so many good people. I've been there so many times. I'm Canadian. I always try to say that because, you know, I can only say so much, but I have a big say in this, just like most Canadians do, because whatever happens to the United States, it happens here, right? I know how the world works, and I know that if this tyrannical state rises in the United States, it's not going to stop at the borders. Right now in Canada, we have a joint border patrol, which means we have drone planes flying over our own cities. Most Canadians live within 200 kilometers. I mean, 90% of the population of Canada, or 95%, is within 200 kilometers of the American border. You know, a major city like Montreal is about 80 kilometers from New York border, which means we have drone planes flying over our own cities. So we're all part of this, you know, and it fucking sucks. It fucking sucks. All right? I tell you, I don't want to go to the United States anymore until things change, until good people start to rise up, until, you know, these clowns are replaced by real people who serve the people and not the banks. The real battle that has to be fought is against the Federal Reserve and against the banksters. Most of us know that by now. If we can't stop them, if we can't break their power, they will do what they want to do with us. And they will use their tentacles, like these motherfuckers, to carry out their plan. They will use their puppets to convince the people that the plan is necessary. This is the darkest days in United States history, in my mind. I mean, there's been dark days before, but this United States was always, there was always a greatness to that country that would overcome things. You know, like we saw the Civil Rights Movement. You know, how the Americans, you know, were able to come to the rescue of Europe and defeat the Nazis, how they were able to defeat Japan, and then how they came and they rebuilt Japan and Germany with the Marshall Plan. Right? The Americans have done amazing things, and then they've done horrible things. It just seems now that almost everything that their leaders do is either an affront to peace in the world, you know, or an affront to their own people. And that's because they are controlled by these banksters. It's time to break this control, and I think the first thing we can start with is the corporate media. Expose the corporate media, destroy the corporate media, and then you will break the spell that is on the sheeple. And when the sheeple wake up, they'll be angry. They'll be really angry, right? And we need the sheeple. Unfortunately, we need the sheeple. I mean, we can't go. We need the middle class. We need the doctors and lawyers and politicians and municipality governments and stuff to start working. People ask me from the States what they can do, how they can stop this tyranny. The best thing that they can do, aside from stopping the corporate media, is to talk to your states, talk to your governors, you know, make your politicians, your state politicians, protect your rights, protect your state, you know, make sure that they will not support this gun grab. Make sure that they will support the freedom of their citizens to protect their families, the freedom of their citizens to arm themselves, so that if a tyrannical government starts doing horrible things, then they can fight back. Because sooner or later, if these clowns keep going the way they're going, that's the way it's going to end up. Let's hope it and pray that it never gets to that point. This is Jeff C. Hope you are all well, and God bless those who are fighting for peace, democracy, the Republic of the United States, and the freedom of people around the world.